Our first question comes from Linda. Are comprehensive plans required for all communities in Minnesota, or is it based on the size or location of communities? Maybe Rita, I'll start off with you on that one.
Sure, thanks. Comprehensive plans are not required for small communities, but if a community has a land use zoning ordinance and zoning ordinance that talks about, where things can be built and how they can be built and how close they can be built, that really has to be based on a comprehensive plan that the community together has said, here's what we want our community to look like. Because the planning law requires that whenever you are going to take a planning action, that you reflect back on the comprehensive plan and how does that planning action fit into what we said on our comprehensive plan that we want to do. So if somebody wants to rezone from residential to business, for example, how did our comprehensive plan say that we would have business in that area, or how we were going to expand business? So while they're not required, I would say that if you have a zoning ordinance, which many communities do not, you would need to have a comprehensive plan. Others may want to weigh in on that and disagree with me.
Does anybody have anything else to add, Megan or Sydnee, on that one?
Well, I know Sydnee just went through a comp plan, as did Albert Lee, and I always say, I think it's sometimes, especially elected officials or maybe, your everyday average citizen doesn't understand the benefit to that, but it's probably something at least, someone in the office is referencing every day. So
Yes.
I completely agree. They couldn't be more beneficial whether they're required or not.
Thank you. Thank you for your responses. Sydnee, I'll go to you for this question. Teresa has asked, who serves on planning commissions? What is the best way for citizens to engage and serve? Maybe you can tell, a little bit about what the planning commission is like in your community, and who are the people that are getting involved, and how do you encourage people to be on these commissions?
Yeah, so for the city of Owatonna, a lot of the planning commissioners are people who are prominent in the community, whether they own a small business or they work for one of the large employers, or they work for the school. It's people who are really involved in the community and who want to be a part of making the changes, or just making sure that what people are proposing aligns with what the community wants when we have public hearings and when we vote on applications and variances and all that sort of stuff. Generally, I believe there's a application process for getting on to the planning commission, and then you'll be appointed by the mayor, and that's the process. I haven't been through the process with the city of Owatonna of how we have gotten our commissioners since I'm new, but that's how all of our commissioners have gotten onto the planning commission. And then with that, just getting involved whenever there's a public hearing, coming to those and listening to what the planning commissioners vote on, and raising concerns. They're always open to hearing from the community, and they take those concerns and comments into account when they're voting, as well as with the staff reports that we make in the planning department. They take that and decide if what they're voting on is best for the community, if it will be approved or denied. And then if you do want to be on the planning commission, I would say just go to the city administrator, the planning department, see when the next term is up. You can go on our website and see when planning commissioners' terms are up, and then if they decide not to renew their term, we'll have the application system out, and you could of course apply for that.
Great, thanks, Sydnee. And the other thing that I would add to that is that sometimes community members see joining the planning commission as an opportunity to get involved when they've had some issue within the community, that they either really like the outcome or they don't like the outcome, and they've learned through the process that is a good way to be a part of your community and be a part of the decision making that that happens on the planning commission. keep in mind that the planning commissions are advisory to the city council, so they don't make the final decision. But the city council relies on planning commissions to give them a recommendation. And so they do important work and they hold the public hearings, and it's a good opportunity to get involved if that's something that you feel you'd want to do in your own community. And so the next question I think I'll ask Megan, since she brought up the EV chargers and her climate action plan down in Albert Lee, but climate change this is from Erica, and climate change conservation was mentioned, as well as the barrier of cost of some of those solutions for smaller communities. What opportunities do you see for small communities to contribute to climate resilience? Is there new funding available now in Minnesota for some of these solutions? And Megan, why don't you start off, and people can contribute if they would like to.
Yeah, I mean, Albert Lee did receive a grant to complete their climate action plan. And it sounds scary, right? But there are small things that you can do, you know, with even outside of a climate action plan. You know, reducing parking requirements. Is it really necessary for your shopping centers or your Walmarts to have enough parking to accommodate people on the day after Thanksgiving and the day after Christmas? Or, you know, can we reduce those requirements overall? You know, is it really important to require you know, a permeable surface of some sort in every development? Or should we be more open to, you know, a more pervious surface or impervious surface? I think I'm mixing those two up, sorry. That's what happens when I try to talk too fast. But you know, there are just smaller ways, you know, encouraging no mow zones or rain gardens. There are smaller ways that you can help that, you know, climate goal throughout your community. It doesn't have to be like a large plan or a large initiative. I think I answered that question.
Yeah, and I
Lori.
see that. Thank you, Megan. I see that Rita wants to chime in on this one too. Go ahead.
I love this question. There are lots of ways that small communities can do climate action, and Megan just mentioned a bunch of them. One of them is changing ordinance so that people can have a rain garden, or they can have no mow in their front yard. We've gotten grants from our local power company to put in EV chargers. So we've done half a dozen across the city. We got a grant from a guaranteed energy savings program from the Department of Commerce and Energy at the state to do an audit of 9 buildings in the city, and then we did upgrades on those to save money on electrical bill. So there are state programs. MPCA and Bowser, I think, probably have grant programs. I know our Parks Department has received a grant, I think maybe from MPCA, I'm not 100% sure, but for electric blowers and edgers, mowers, that kind of thing, so that we're trying to reduce that carbon footprint. So there are a number of state programs. I don't have them at my fingertips, but also, you know, your local power companies have lots of good programs, especially to put in solar and other things like that, that you can take advantage of.
Thank you, Rita. Good, very, very good advice and good points. I'm going to keep the questions coming here so we get to everybody. The next one is from Brenda, and she asks, how do we motivate local planners and government to incorporate an age-friendly lens in their work? Do any of the speakers have any perspective on that that they want to share?
Well, because I'm the elder in the group, I guess I can share.
Yes.
That's a really good point, because we're trying to build a community that serves everyone. So accessibility, whether you're mobility challenged, you know, having lay down curbs on all of your corners so that wheelchairs or walkers go up them well, being able to cite a nursing home or assisted living, because maybe you don't have anything in your ordinance that talks about assisted living. So I think there are a number of ways that cities can look at their ordinance, look at their comp plan, and make sure that they are incorporating all ages, whether that's little ones, and someone mentioned bike to school, or the moving school school bus. And I think that stretches. So you want your plan to be able to facilitate all ages, the whole spectrum. And what's the best way to get that done? I just think senior groups need to have a loud voice, and they need to come to the table. All ages have to be at the table to make sure that we have a comprehensive, there's that word again, look at planning and development in our communities.
Thank you, Rita. And I would just add to that too, that if your community is going through a comprehensive plan process, it's a good way for you to get involved, whether you have young children or you're at the other end of the age spectrum and you feel that your community is lacking, because most comprehensive plans these days will cover how how is the city going to accommodate for a wide variety of ages in their communities. So there's always an opportunity for you to get involved. I'm going to ask this question from Michaela, and this is something that Reve and I have done other panel discussions about, and it's it's an important one. How has your experience been working in a male-dominated field with your coworkers and developers in a rural community, and how have you navigated difficulties you have faced, or have you had good experiences too? I think as women in the planning profession, we deal with this a lot. And why don't we just start with Megan, and then we can always go around the horn to Rita and Sydnee if they want to chime in. But this is a great question. So Megan?
Yeah, I like how Michaela phrased that, or have you had good experiences too? Because that's been my experience. I have had wonderful male mentors. My planning commission is an entire male commission. Many of the staff members in the community development department are male, and a lot of the developers that I work with daily are male. I've never felt like outnumbered or underappreciated, or so I guess I might have to defer to someone who has had different experiences, but I do appreciate Michaela mentioning that good experiences are possible too. So
Sure. And I think, male advocacy is something to also talk about, because that does occur a lot too. It looks like Sydnee has something that she wants to add.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that going into the planning field, I did not know that it was a male dominated field. So then going through my interviewing process and just seeing other cities, I started to realize I'm going, most likely going to have a male boss, and a lot of my peers will be males and all that sort of stuff, which is totally fine. But yeah, I work for the city of Owatonna, where everyone around me is a male. If someone comes in to ask a question, a lot of times I'm assumed to be the administrative tech, and they'll say, "Oh, I've already been helped," and I'm like, "No, I'm the one helping you. Actually, I'll be helping you through the process." Which it's just being assertive in a respectful way. This is what I'll be doing for you, and also feeling confident. I think coming into this career, I had to gain a lot of confidence, being able to know that what I'm saying has value, and I have something to add to the conversation, especially just being surrounded by men, and also being young and not sure if what I'm saying is correct, or just trying to learn where I can. But overall, I have great bosses. Everyone I work with is great. So just being confident enough to feel like I'm meant to be here and I can add something to the conversation, and then as well as just learning from those above me, and being able to be a better planner through that.
That's great. I really like that answer, Sydnee, that you certainly do and can contribute to all of these conversations. So Rita, did you want to add anything to that one?
Just one thing, I would agree with Sydney that often people come in the office and they're surprised it's a woman that's going to be at the helm. So once they get over that initial shot, I have had good experiences really in a lot of things. The time you have a bad experience or someone challenges you in a negative way is when you don't agree with them or you tell them, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And so having some tact with understanding that this is really important to them, being a good listener, trying to find common ground, build consensus, offering options. Those are all ways that you're going to diffuse that situation. But it's generally happens when you have to say, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that.
I would agree. And I would say that over the course of my career too, I've had numerous occasions where I've told somebody no, and they said, well, I'd like to speak to the man in charge. So it kind of tells you where their mind is in that regard. So yeah, I mean, I've worked also with great, fantastic male advocates and supervisors, but I have had a lot of pushback in some regards. So thanks for that question, Michaela. The next question is from Lauren, and she says, thank you for a great panel discussion. I'd love to hear more about the opportunities and challenges related to historic preservation in smaller communities. How have you observed historic preservation intersecting with the current needs of the communities you work with? I think actually I'm going to direct this question to Reve because she does a lot of work in Northfield with historic preservation. So Reve, would you be willing to take a shot at that?
Yeah, absolutely. Northfield has a historic district, as do many small towns, especially across the country. And I think even myself coming into the field, I was a bit skeptical in terms of what's really important here. And the more that I learned about it, it's not just about the way that they look, the architecture. It's really about the stories and the history of our communities. Being able to learn where we came from really impacts where we go. And I think just from traveling across the country too, I've learned that areas, specifically Main Street communities who are focused on historic revitalization are really good places to be. You may not know, I guess, walking through a town if they have a historic district or not, but oftentimes you'll walk around and notice that it's really a good place to travel or to live. Because you really made that commitment. It's definitely a challenging one, but there are definitely different benefits. I think, sharing, depending on who you're talking to, really tailoring your speech or your advocacy to them. So maybe they care about the history of the community, they've grown up there, or maybe they're concerned about economic development. Being able to reuse these buildings over time as opposed to building new, or maybe it's related to sustainability in terms of not using new materials to construct one. So I think there's definitely a different way you can tailor your argument or advocacy based on who you're talking to and what they resonate most with.
This one is from Kim. Community challenges in general tend to be incredibly complex and touch constituencies in vastly different ways. Are there ways you'd like to more deeply engage the community at large, to consult them about how they feel / are affected, or is that too hard? Does anybody want to take a shot at that first one? Rita, maybe?
I think the writer there, Kim, you're spot on. They are everything is complex. It's a network, right? Nothing is linear. It's all a web. And how do we get people to pay attention? And, communication is one way. Maybe the planning office has a newsletter, or the city has a newsletter, or the county has a newsletter that the planner always has a little blurb in there about what development is happening. I know in Bemidji, monthly we get a planning report, and it tells, these are the planning cases we're working on. These are the things that have happened in our community. Here's where we are with this. we've had this many planning actions or this many, the things that have changed. So I think communication is one way. If you can make your meetings accessible through WebEx or Zoom or some other way, that's another way for people to be able to access things and see what's happening. Encourage if you have a local news source, whether that's radio or television or paper, to report on your planning commission meetings, or maybe have your planner or the planning commission chair write an article and send it out, so that people just raise the awareness of how planning really affects the community. So for me, it's communication is one big way to get people engaged.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to add to that? Megan or Sydney?
I was just gonna say transparency. I think, like Rita mentioned, the meetings, having those be available online, putting as much detail as you can into your public hearing notices and your staff reports. Being a staple in the office that people know that they can come and ask you their questions. I acknowledge it is hard, but it's doable. There are ways.
Thank you. The one last question that I think that we can try to get to, it looks like it comes from Teresa. And what are the skills that you would need to serve on a planning commission, and what do folks making appointments look for? I would say that in my tenure as a city planner, most of the time communities will ask for applications, like Sydney had said, and then usually the city council will make the appointment to the planning commission. And I think it just depends on your council and what they are looking for in terms of how involved they want people to be. Maybe the qualities that they look for are maybe listening to a wide range of voices, how interested you are in the city and how civically engaged you are. Those are just a couple of things. Reve, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that too, or any of the other speakers? I know Reve had pinged me in the chat about this one, so.
Yeah, I read an article from the APA recently talking about, how do we get a more diverse and unique perspectives on planning commissions. I think historically, we've seen a lot of lawyers or architects, kind of more white collar jobs, or those working more traditional, 9-to-5 jobs. But for a planning commission, it really impacts a lot of things. And the article had called out specifically social workers and stay-at-home parents are also really good folks to be involved in planning commissions. So you definitely don't need to be trained in planning to be involved. I think just really being able to have a critical lens, but all of those different perspectives are important, whether you care about public parks, or maybe you like to ride your bike to school, or you're walking your kids downtown. You definitely have an important voice and can be involved in planning. So definitely, if you're interested, I'd say reach out and maybe speak to maybe a planning commissioner in your county or city to learn a little bit more. But you definitely don't need any professional experience to be able to join.
Can I add to that, Lori?
Sure.
Thanks. I'll just add that I think part of it is encouraging your city council, because our mayor recommends in our council firms appointments. And so encouraging your city council to have all your commissions, whether it's a planning commission, the arts commission, the historical commission, to reflect the diversity of your community. That your commissions should reflect the age diversity, the ethnic diversity, the gender diversity. All of those kinds of things that make up a community should, in particular with the Planning Commission, be reflected on the Planning Commission, because as Reve said, those are kind of decisions that you're making. So the only special skills I think you need is a commitment to learn about planning, to read your packet, and to make tough decisions, even when your neighbor is standing in front of you saying, no, don't do it. If it's the correct thing to do, you have the brave courage to do it.
Read your packet, right, Rita? That's a big one. Well, thank you. I see that Neva is still on, and she asked about some planning resources for county planning. And Reve did put some ideas in the chat for her, but Neva, I would just encourage you to reach out to any of us on the panel. We would be happy to provide more ideas for you. So please feel free to do that if you have time. Teresa, that was the end of our questions. If you want to close it out.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. And thanks for staying on a couple more minutes. I know we had a lot of ground to cover, so I appreciate that. 100 Roll Women really feels fortunate to be able to host this webinar today. And a special thanks to all the presenters. And of course, I want to recognize Mitchell Berg, who introduced us to Reve and Lori, and to help us, be engaged and organize this. And this webinar is just such an important piece of the work that we're doing in civic engagement and mentorship. So I want to thank you all today for joining, and